G'day viewers. Well, absolutely huge news being reported in Australia today with Cardinal George Pell having been found guilty of sexually abusing two choir boys. Now, this conviction was actually recorded in December. I made a video at the time referencing the fact there was this story that Australian media couldn't report on, but was being reported on by international media, and that was because of a suppression order that a judge issued because Pell was facing another trial on further sexual assault charges. Now that trial is now not going to go ahead, so the suppression order can be lifted and we can find out, yes, he's guilty of sexually abusing children under his care. Now, this is the thing, right? This guy is the third most powerful, or until he was stood down from his position, he reached the position of being the third most powerful Catholic in the world. This is not just another parish priest, and I mean another of the hundreds that have been found around the world, hundreds of abusers within the Catholic Church, if not thousands. This was the third most powerful Catholic in the world. Basically went Pope, the guy who knows where the Satanic Bible's kept, and then Pell, and he was in charge of the Vatican's money. And now he's fallen about as far as you can fall. This, while I hope, feels like some vindication for people who've been affected by the hideous behaviour of this man over decades. Because the two choir boys he assaulted, one has since died from a drug overdose, and that's a common thread with a lot of people who've been abused by members of the clergy and other authority figures. They seek comfort in drug addiction, and many of them do die from drug overdoses or die by suicide. That's the ultimate price the victims pay, and the perpetrators seem so rarely to pay any price at all. Now, knowing now that Pell himself has been convicted of serious sexual abuse, and there have been so many other allegations against him, and what we know from the Royal Commission into Child Abuse in the Church and other institutions is that Pell protected pedophile and abusive priests. It's been very clear for a very long time he regarded the reputation of the church as a far more important thing to protect than his actual parishioners. This is one of those cases where I go, you are so very lucky the ridiculous bullshit you preach is not true. Because if any of it was, there'd be no doubt this piece of shit is going to the deepest pit of hell for the worst torture imaginable. Because he didn't just abuse these choir boys, he protected abusers. And this was the people that he's sworn to protect. The job of the priest is to protect their parishioners. And this person has a long history of protecting abusers, failing utterly in his central role, and yet he's been promoted to the absolute heights and praised by virtually every conservative voice in Australia, despite the obvious actions he undertook with the protection of abusive priests within the Catholic Church. And even now, okay, now he's actually been convicted of serious sexual abuse. Surely some of these people are going to walk it back and going, I was wrong. The people who said repeatedly, the Royal Commission into child abuse in the Catholic Church and other institutions, oh, that's just political grandstanding. There's no issue. There's no problem. This is just populist politics. And yet it uncovered abuse from top to bottom in these institutions. It showed abuse was basically the rule, not the exception. If you were lucky enough to be in a Catholic diocese that didn't have a child abuse scandal, you were lucky, basically. And none of these people who said the Royal Commission was wrong have apologised for their fuckery. And now, here's Pell. He's been convicted. Who's the first one to comment publicly? Andrew fucking Bolt reveals himself to be so much worse than I ever thought he was. And let me be clear, in the terms of who's the scum of the earth in terms of these public talking heads, he was already so disgusting in my estimation. It's hard to articulate, but it's a bloody shock to understand I had too high an opinion of him before, because he's come out and said the conviction is wrong. Pell is a scapegoat. How could they convict him? Yeah, just, with evidence and stuff. And this is the thing. Like I said, Pell's had so many allegations against him over the years. So many of these cases haven't gone to court because prosecution, judiciary said, we don't think there's a realistic chance of a conviction here. That does not mean innocent. That means the nature of evidence required, particularly with someone so high profile, particularly with just such a volatile outcome. They would not proceed with a case unless there was absolutely compelling evidence. And in this one, the one that went forward, he's been convicted. And this worthless, snivelling, steaming pile of shit, Andrew Bolt, has the audacity to not only not apologise for his evil fucking comments of the past, but to double down and say this conviction is wrong. This disgusts me so much more than I can easily say. I mean, I could say it, but the vast majority of what I would say would be considered actionable under Australian law. So I won't do that. I mean, I'm not going to say he should be dragged out into the street to face the justice of the people. I'm just saying I think there is a big opening for an enterprising startup who begins a whole new business where they make high quality guillotines.